of you. Thank you so much for having me here. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to be here with you on this afternoon, especially sharing with you a topic that is so very near and dear to my heart, and that is the prevention of workplace bullying. So we're going to go through a little bit of a journey today. I'm going to take you back through my past. We're going to come up to my present, and then we're going to move forward and talk about what I'm looking forward to in the future. So just hang tight, hang with me as we go through this, and hopefully we can fit it all in. All right? And including in all this, of course, we're going to be talking about the power of your voice. All right? Okay, so we're going to start with this quote, and it's a quote that I'm sure that you all have seen before at some point in time, and you're going to hear me reference this quote a lot throughout the presentation today. And this is a quote by Gandhi that says, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." So instead of just sitting back and watching and complaining and sitting on the sidelines, actually do something to see change happen. Be the change yourself. Okay, so that's what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today too. All right, so we're going to start off with talking about my personal experience and why I have such a passion and dedication to this particular topic. So you might get some laughs in this, but hang in there with me here. All right, so here we go. Here I am in third grade. This is third grade Sabrina. And during this time, this was the first year that I had to get glasses. So any of you who had to get glasses in grade school know what that might be like already. So it's not enough that you're already being picked on for the clothes that you wear, the shoes that you wear, how you style your hair, and everything else. It's just something else that's added to the whole pot. And additionally, this was also around the time that I started more so developing the freckles that I have. And a lot of people that look like me don't have freckles, so I got picked on for that as well. So I just couldn't get away from this thing. But nonetheless, back then, you didn't hear it called bullying. It was called more so being picked on. And it's kind of something that everybody goes through at some point in time, whether it's the little thing about your shoes, the little thing about your clothes, the little things about your hair, whatever the case might be. It's kind of a part of being a kid, if you will. Okay? Now, as time went on, this is 8th grade, okay? And I attended school in an area called Danville, Virginia. Anybody familiar with Danville? Yay, Danville. It's right on down this road, 29, so it made me think about going home today when I was driving here. I know 29 very well, but Danville is where I grew up. And so this is 8th grade, and I attended a junior high called Bonner. And this is actually the school. It is still there. It is now middle school, from what I understand. But I was in junior high there. And I think they've done away with junior highs altogether now. But nonetheless, I'm going to tell you a little story about what happened to me while I was attending Bonner in 8th grade. So there was a young lady, and for the sake of protecting the guilty, I'll call her Sandy in the story. So Sandy, she didn't like me for many of the very reasons a lot of people don't like other people. It doesn't mean a whole lot. Just don't like your clothes, don't like how you look, don't like how you talk, how you walk, how you act. Doesn't really matter. So she didn't like me, and so she targeted me and picked on me. And it didn't help that Sandy had a clique, a little group of girls, kind of called mean girls, if you will, that ran around with her, who helped her pick on me. And so here I, young 8th grade, nerdy Sabrina, I go home and I tell my mom, and I'm crying. I'm like, oh, this girl Sandy, she keeps picking on me. She won't stop. I don't know what to do, right? And so let me give you a little bit of background about my mom. My mom is angel on earth, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way about your mothers too, but let me just say. My mom has no tattoos. She doesn't curse. She doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke. She really is my angel on earth. She's just a perfect being as far as I'm concerned. So here I am telling this poor lady who's a single mom, okay? My mom and father divorced when I was 1. I pretty much never heard from him again. So here she and I are, and I'm complaining and telling her about what's happened to me. And here's the advice that my angelic mom gave me. She said, listen here, this is what I want you to do. You go to school tomorrow, and don't you come home until you beat Sandy's behind. You hear me? I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't. And I was, hey, look, I can follow orders. And so my mom gave me specific directions on what she wanted me to do in this situation, and so I can't let her down. So the next day I walk into Bonner, and Bonner has a commons area, kind of like a hangout area before class starts, near the lockers, everybody's hanging out, you hang out there during lunch and all that stuff. So from the moment I walked into Bonner that next morning, I was on a mission. So I'm looking for Sandy as soon as I walk through the door. Have you seen Sandy? You've seen Sandy. You've seen Sandy? Well, I know you saw Sandy because you're part of our group. Somebody in here has seen Sandy. Y'all let her know that I'm looking for her. And by lunchtime, if any of you have seen Fist Fight, the movie, that's what we had gathered around. As everybody's like, aha, there's Sandy. So here I come, and I'm like, oh, Sandy, here you are. So let's just go ahead and do this thing. You've been talking all kinds of stuff about me, and I'm really just tired of it, so let's just go ahead and get it over with. And she's looking at me like, I don't know where you got the impression that I was trying to fight you. No, I think there's been a miscommunication or misunderstanding. I'm not trying to fight you. Right? And so my mom, in all her wisdom and experience as an adult, she already knew that. She already knew that people who have the biggest, that thing, there's nothing that falls behind it. That's just the way it is. And that's how bullies are. And by the way, there's my angel mom. Her birthday was last weekend, and I got an opportunity to go down again and see her. But she already knew that. She knew that Sandy was never trying to fight me, and that's what you have to do when it comes to bullies, is to stand up to them. It's just like the classic movie that you see where the little kid is being beat up on the playground for lunch money. And as long as the kid is giving the bully the lunch money, they're going to come at you every day. And it's probably going to get more and more aggressive, actually. It's not until that kid on the playground socks that bully in the face that that bully runs away and never comes back again. And that's not what I'm condoning to you, is to fight, not at all. We're going to talk about how to fight with the power of our voice today, because you don't need anything physical to make that happen. Okay, so we're definitely going to talk about that. So anyway, let's move on to workplace bullying. So here I've gone through grade school, and I thought, hey look, I've gone through maybe elementary, middle, junior high. I'm now about to step into the so-called real world, and I'm going to leave all this stuff behind me. All this getting picked on and stuff. Adults don't do this. That's what I thought. I was wrong. Okay? So I earned my undergraduate degree at the University of Virginia. I started working in, you call it office settings. And then I also went on to become a volunteer for a local fire department in Prince William County. And so what I'm going to share with you today is another story. And again, this is where this be the change thing is going to start to come out a little bit more. So stay with me with that theme. Okay? Now, I was bullied, have been bullied, at 4 different workplaces that have no affiliation with one another. No affiliation with one another. Okay? So I've gone through this from time to time to time, and I'll talk to you in just a bit about why I believe now that is, based on my research and all that good stuff. But anyway, let's go to one of the scenarios I want to share with you as far as bullying in the workplace and what that looks like, just to make sure you have an understanding of what it could look like, just in case you've been bullied and didn't even realize that that can happen. Okay? So when I became a in Prince William County. Initially, I was placed on a crew, a duty crew, where you run. And again, for sake of protecting the guilty, I'll call this young lady Lieutenant Tammy. Lieutenant Tammy was my supervisor, okay? And so my goal in joining this department was to become an emergency medical technician. And as you may know, it takes some time, a few months actually, to go through the schooling to certify and get state qualified and all that stuff. And there's a reason I'm giving you all this background. So nonetheless, in the meantime, if you want to be purposeful while on the crew, you can quickly become an ambulance driver. An ambulance driver. So I could get through that training in less than a month and feel like I was, being effective, productive on the crew in the meantime. What I did not know, and later found out, Lieutenant Tammy wanted to be a driver of an ambulance. And as you can imagine, with driving, first responder units, police cars, so on and so forth, you have to have a clean driving record. And so, unfortunately, Lieutenant Tammy's driving record was a little tarnished. She had a couple points on her driver's license, and so therefore she could not qualify to be a driver. So here I am, new girl, coming in, and I'm your driver. Yeah, you're still my supervisor, but I'm your driver. So she already was feeling some kind of way about me coming in the door, okay? So, to move on in this whole thing, I completed EMT school. Like I said, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I actually graduated kind of top of my class. I was cut out to be one of the best EMTs you've ever had. I can't wait to do patient touches. I'm gonna check vitals. If you're having a heart attack, I'm gonna get you some nitroglycerin. You're having a diabetes attack, I'm gonna get you some glucose. I'm gonna take care of you. However, when I got on the job, Lieutenant Tammy would never allow me to do anything with patients. She would tell me to just go back to the unit and grab the stretcher. Go back to the unit, grab the O2. And I never get an opportunity to actually practice the skills in which I was qualified to perform. This often happens in bullying scenarios, okay? So additionally, I also was in line to get a promotion. However, I needed Lieutenant Tammy to train me and help me meet the criteria in the criteria book. So I would go to Lieutenant Tammy and say, hey, could you help me with this? Could you help me with that? What do you think her response can always be? I'm busy, no, can't do it, right? So again, she's holding me back, hindering me from being able to grow within the organization. So then, this is where we got to a point where I really started to get frustrated about this whole thing. So as a driver of the ambulance, I am responsible for checking out the unit before and after every shift, for safety purposes, as you can imagine. So I have a whole checklist of things that I have to do. Got to check tire pressure, oil, transmission fluids, so on and so forth. And it's going to take about 15 minutes or so. And don't let me need to get oil or something. It's going to take a little longer, right? So I'm out here checking the unit before each shift. Lieutenant Tammy comes over to hover over me and say, what's taking so long? You take too long. Why does it take you so long to check out the unit? Oh, hurry up. And she would do this to me every shift. And I'm explaining to her, you are not going to distract me from making sure this unit is safe while we're in it, as well as while we're transporting patients. This unit's going to be checked out appropriately. So then, one day she came out and she says, the chief just called. The busy chief of our fire department. The chief just called and he said, you're taking too long to check out the unit. I said, you know what? Call him back. Call him back. We'll figure it out. So now you're lying to me to try to get your way. So I said, you know what? I put in a request, asked to speak with one of the assistant chiefs. I said, I'd like to be transferred to another crew. I don't think I can work with Lieutenant Tammy anymore. Okay? So I went, made this complaint, sat down with the assistant chief, and he sat across from me and he said, here's the deal. You're the only driver. I need you to stay on the crew. So what do you think is going to happen as far as I'm concerned? You're asking me to stay in what I consider to be a hostile work environment. Are you going to stay in the hostile work environment just because you're the only person that can do your job? No. So I said, you know what? I'm going to step down. I'm going to step down. I no longer want to run operationally anymore, and I'll become administrative. And so that was the choice that I made at that time. So we're going to circle back to the story in just a minute, but I want to just make the point to you with the story, the examples of what workplace bullying looks like. And this can happen in any industry. It doesn't have to be just what I described as far as industry is concerned. All right, so after going through all these different experiences with workplace bullying, like I said, that story was just one situation of 4 different organizations in which I experienced this. So I said, you know what, I need to research what is going on. Why do I have a target on my forehead that says bully me? I go into my jobs, wherever they are. I'm the first person to get there. I'm the last person to leave. I work super hard. I usually get promoted super fast. And that's the problem. That's the problem. I realize that many people are intimidated by that because a lot of folks are just lazy. So they don't want that hard worker that's coming in and kind of taking the shine. And that's why I became a target. Doesn't make it right, of course not, but I realized that's what was happening, okay? And so this young lady, Andrea Adams, was one of the first people that's noted to have started researching workplace bullying, and this was back in 1990. It really hasn't been that long. This has been going on for decades and decades and decades, but people have been scared to talk about it. Super scared for various different reasons, thinking they're going to lose their job, so on and so forth. But Miss Adams here, she said, okay, look, I have a feeling there's a lot of people that's experiencing this phenomenon, and so what I'd like to do, and this, by the way, took place in London. The U.S. is always behind when it comes to this type of stuff, sorry. But this took place in London. So she reached out to a local radio station, and she said, I would like to hold a segment to just have people call in and share their stories about workplace bullying. And initially, she didn't think she would get a really big response to this. And when they actually held this segment, they were overwhelmed at how many people called to share their stories. Flooded with mail after the fact, calls after the fact. They ended up doing a whole second radio segment. And not only were they getting calls from people who were sharing their experiences, in sharing the experiences, these victims and targets were just as emotional as if it had just happened. Because that's the type of psychological and emotional effect workplace bullying can have on you, okay? So on your tables, I provided a handout. There's actually 2, as well as a copy of my business card. But this one goes through the definition of workplace bullying. Now, workplace bullying falls under the umbrella of harassment. And harassment is a very broad term. It can be intentional, unintentional. It is based on perception, okay? These are aggressive and intimidating behaviors that create a hostile work environment for someone, okay? And there's a lot of different things that can derive from being harassed at work. Oftentimes, your body's going to respond. You may have headaches, stomach aches, panic attacks, trouble sleeping. Lots of different things can take place. But underneath this umbrella of harassment falls workplace bullying. And so, although though there are well over 100 different definitions of what workplace bullying really is, I've taken my culmination of those definitions as well as my experience to create the definition that you see on this sheet. Okay, and this is the definition that also, this is the definition that also framed my research that we're also going to talk about in just a second. One of the things I do want to point out is that workplace bullying does not include physical abuse. So if someone is punching tables, punching the walls, slamming file cabinets, leaning into your personal space and yelling in your face, now we've escalated to what's called workplace violence. And that's a whole separate category. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So harassment, sexual harassment, discrimination, even hazing, all these things are covered by law. But the bad news is workplace bullying is not covered by law. Part of the reason may be because what I just said, there's over 100 different definitions, so can we even agree on what would be considered a universal definition of it?
It keeps going out when you're standing right there. I'm sorry? The mic keeps going out when you stand right there. I don't know what's there.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
So this is the problem that we're bumping into right now. However, we have been introduced to an even bigger problem here with the advances in technology, and that's cyberbullying. And so with that, we're now exposed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to someone being able to bully you electronically. It's almost as though you can't get away from it. Now, there are 48 states that have implemented cyberbullying laws, but there's still nothing on a federal level, and the majority of those laws are specific to protecting those in grade school, not at work. So we still have a bigger problem. And you may have even heard just recently, as a matter of fact, I believe I watched the airing on Friday night, ABC News did an interview with our very own, anybody know? Our very own First Lady. Made big news. And there was one line in particular that she shared that really blew up, so to speak. Anybody know what she said? She said that she felt as though she was one of the most bullied people in the world. This is what our First Lady said. She felt that she was one of the most bullied people in the world. It's a very strong statement. And it's very interesting because even in making that statement, there were a lot of people who disagreed and went, oh yeah, all right, whatever. You're just so spoiled, First Lady. And here's the thing. I actually took a moment to put myself in her shoes because we don't do that enough. I said, let me just think about what she's experiencing on a daily basis. This woman is criticized for every little move she makes, every hat, every scarf, every blazer, every pair of pants, every skirt, every dress, everything. Can you imagine the scrutiny of what she's going through? I could understand how she could feel like one of the most bullied people in the world. It's to the point that she doesn't even go on Twitter anymore at all because there's so much hate that's being put out there towards her. Or the new word today that I think is even in the dictionary is trolling. Yeah. And so it's a horrible thing. And this other story over here on the right, you may have heard about this one. This was a firefighter from Fairfax County, Nicole Mittendorf. Apparently, this is still an open case, but what has been shared with the public is that there was an underground website that had been put together. Authorities or, chiefs, fire chiefs, so on and so forth, didn't necessarily know about this site, but a lot of the firefighters did. And so therefore, they were using this site to gossip and spread rumors about this young lady regarding the fire department and some of her personal dealings. And back in April of 2016, she went missing. And I remember this. I remember watching the news. I remember the day 1 passed, day 2 passed. They're searching for this young lady. And then unfortunately on day 6, they found her body with a note. And upon completing an autopsy, discovered that she had committed suicide. And the speculation is this is because of what she was experiencing with this underground site and the trolling and everything, okay? And so this is, again, still under investigation. The fire chief of Fairfax County stepped down. They brought in a second fire chief, and they've actually just brought in their 3rd fire chief who started September 1 this year to try to help with preventing these types of problems within the organization. And come to find out, unfortunately, this website is still up, and the parents are trying to get the authorities to take this website down so that it's not still bringing harm to other people, because what I understand, this lady is still being trolled in her death. Still being trolled. However, there's not enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt to say that it was the website that caused her to commit suicide. So that's the controversy. But nonetheless, this is still a problem. I'm just outlining what the problem is. Again, we have to be the change. Coming back to that. So here's a statistic for you. 1 in 3 individuals in the workplace are being bullied. 1 in 3. It's a lot of people. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the power of your voice, which is my change action for you. So you have to understand that when you're in a workplace setting and you're experiencing the things that are listed on that page that I left for you on your table, you have to be willing to speak up for yourself. Now here's the problem with that. Again, in this world today, with the technological advances of more computers and everyone having cell phones and laptops and tablets and all these great things, is that it hinders us from being able to practice the soft skill of communication. When we don't practice communicating, you know what happens? We don't know how to do it. So if we can barely speak to each other, if we can barely ask how you're doing today, which we don't do, how in the world are you going to confront somebody and say you've hurt my feelings? We've lost the power of voice. We've lost it. So we have to do better individually. And you have to be able to tell someone who has hurt your feelings, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that they have done so in an assertive manner. I'm not saying you curse, yell, scream. I'm not saying that you humiliate or embarrass anybody. In a one-on-one setting, you pull that person aside. I don't care who it is. I don't care what title they have. I don't care who's supervisor and who's supervisor and who's supervisor. We're all human at the end of the day, okay? And so one-on-one, you pull this person aside and you have a conversation. This is what I have been experiencing over X amount of time, and I'm asking that you don't do that anymore. It's not related to work. It's not making me a better performer at work. As a matter of fact, it's doing the exact opposite. And I'd like for us to be able to get past this. Now, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and think that we're reasonable people. And that if someone hears that from you, they're not going to put up the defense, but that they're actually going to say, you know what, I'm really glad you brought that to my attention. I certainly didn't want you to feel any kind of way. Sorry about that. That won't happen anymore going forward. That's how I would hope that conversation would go for you. Okay? So I'm going to give you another story in which I had to practice this in real life. So there was an organization that I worked for a few years ago, and there was a gentleman who worked with me, again, for the sake of protecting the guilty. We'll call him Joe. And Joe and I were both supervisors at this location. Oh, hopefully nobody in here is named Joe. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Joe. Not that Joe. All right, but the hypothetical Joe here. So he and I were both supervisors for this particular organization. And I could already tell Joe really didn't like me a whole lot. You know, you can just kind of tell that a person's body language and their shortness with you, the way they look at you, all these things. They don't even necessarily have to say it, you just know. So I knew Joe would be fond of me. But at the end of the day, we don't have to be buddies, we don't have to be best friends, we just work together. And we just need to be able to work together effectively. So one day Joe came into my office to ask me a work-related question. And I gave him a work-related answer. It was nothing personal about the answer, nothing I could do about it. It was just a work-related answer. Nonetheless, he didn't like my answer. And so he turned to walk out of my office, and he slammed the door so hard, it's like the walls went, ooh. You know, you see it on TV. And I was really upset. I mean, super upset that he did that. And my heart was palpitating. My hands were shaking. I was so angry that that's how he responded to me. Now, understand that when you get to levels like that, you yourself have to calm down before you can approach somebody about their behavior. So I sat there at my desk, I counted to 10, the little woosah, to come back down. And then I thought to myself, and you have to think ahead about what you're going to say. Don't just go blurting stuff out because you're going to say something you can't take back. So think through what you're going to say. Think through how this person might respond to you. It could go this way, or it could go this way. And think about how you're going to respond either way, because it might not go the way you were hoping that it would go. So just so you're not caught off guard with the response. All right, so I did that. I sat there, I thought it through. I'm like, I can't let him do this. Because at this point, with him slamming the door like that, as far as I'm concerned, we've surpassed workplace bullying. We're at workplace violence. And so how do I know the next time he comes into my office and asks me a question, and I give him an answer he doesn't like, he's not gonna swipe some stuff off my desk? Anything, it's just gonna escalate. Just like an abusive partner, it's gonna escalate, and I can't allow that to happen. So I'm gonna have to find him. I'm talking to myself. I'm gonna have to find him and have a one-on-one conversation, because I don't want him to feel threatened. I don't want him to feel like I'm bullying him. I just want to have a conversation. So I thought all this through, sitting at my desk. And then I went and found him. And I found him. And I said, hey, look, Joe, you were in my office just a minute ago, right? And listen, I understand we don't have to be friends or anything like that. I'm not trying to force you to be my friend. But we do have to be co-workers. And we need to be able to respect one another. The answer that I gave you just a moment ago, I understand you didn't like that answer. I get it. But we can discuss it and see if there's anything else we can do. But never is it appropriate for you to do anything in my office, such as slam doors or anything similar to that. Are we clear about that? And he kind of was gruff. Well, I didn't realize I slammed the door. But you did. I'm telling you, you did. And I'm asking very nicely that you not do that again, please. So we can work out whatever differences we have. Sure, fine. He was. But trust and believe that next time Joe came in my office and asked a work-related question, and I gave him a work-related answer, he went to shut the door, and he went, so it just is what it is. And these are not fun conversations to have, I'm just going to tell you. It's not going to be exciting, it's not going to be warm and fuzzy in most cases, but it's conversations that have to happen. And you have to think about how you're coming across. Like I said, you don't want to come across aggressive, just in a normal even-keel tone, assertive, making eye contact, be careful with body language, crossing of arms and things like that, right? Just keep all those things in mind. But the power of your voice makes all the difference in the world. It really does. You have to say something. And you need to nip things in the bud with a bully early. And understand that bullies are truly on the inside, and this is going to sound cliche, weak people. They are very weak people. Something happened when they were a kid, and this was them lashing out as an adult. Either they were bullied at school, they may have been bullied at home. Maybe mom and dad bullied them. And so they grew up and said, you know what, I'm not going to let anybody bully me again. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bully them before they can bully me. A lot of times that's the mindset. So if you nip it in the bud early, as they're coming at you, and I'm a 3-strike person at this point. I'll give you 2, maybe you didn't know, I'm going to give you a break, sort of thing. But the 3rd time you say or do something that I perceive to fall under that bullying umbrella, we're going to have a conversation. So I can try to get to the underlying root of the problem. Okay? And many times it's going to have things to do with maybe a little jealousy or intimidation, that sort of thing. Right? That person might not come right out and say that, but oftentimes that's what it is, unfortunately. You know, I even remember in another workplace bullying situation I was in, needing to take some time off. It was right after I started my doctoral program, and I had to attend a residency for the program, and so I went to my supervisor to explain to her that I was going to need a little time off. And my supervisor said to me, because at this point I hadn't shared with her I was working on a doctorate degree, and my supervisor said to me, you have a master's degree. I have a master's degree. Are you trying to take my job? That's what she said to me. And I was really thrown at that thought process. Little did she know I wanted a job way better than hers, but that's where her mind went, and I didn't see that coming. And this is what a lot of people think, unfortunately. She went on to bully me. It got real ugly. That particular situation went on to, I was having a lot of stress and anxiety. I couldn't sleep, had to be put on sleeping medication. Got real ugly. Tried to contact HR, did not realize the vice president of HR was her best friend. So HR was bullying me too. So I got real ugly. And before I knew it, I had to contact the EEOC, lawyers, so on and so forth. You know, but you have to do what you have to do. Because if that conversation, if the voice for some reason doesn't work, you're going to have to take it to another level. You are going to have to contact the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, maybe OSHA, maybe a lawyer. And although there are no laws, there are still ways. There's tort laws. There are ways in which situations can be coupled with something that is protected under law to try to help you. Right? But just understand you've got to say something. You can't just sit back and take it. Because when that happens, we have this type of stuff. Because we all have what you call a breaking point. We all have breaking points, kind of that red button in the glass, don't press that one. We all have that though. And people can take you there. And what we do when that red button is hit is going to vary from person to person, depending on what type of person you are. For some people, if you're sensitive and emotional, and somebody hits that red button, you might just burst into tears. For somebody else, maybe you run out of the building. For another person, maybe you punch a wall. For another person, maybe you punch a person. And for somebody else, maybe they go to the car and say, you know what? I've got a knife, I've got a gun, and this is the last straw for me. So it's different for every person, and we don't know where people are in their mindset. So we have to be very careful. We're in a different world today. There's a lot of mental health issues, more than ever, and I can guarantee you that's going to increase. I won't get into my conspiracy theories about why that is, but it is. And you don't know how people are handling things, handling stress, drugs, legal or illegal, alcohol use, so on and so forth. You just don't know. I have an aunt who works at Goodyear down in Danville. Not just Goodyear where you get your oil change, but the actual Goodyear factory that builds the tires. And just less than 2 weeks ago, there were 2 gentlemen on her job who had a disagreement with one another about a football game. One of the gentlemen turned to walk away, other gentleman stabbed him in the back. My first question was, where did he get the knife? She said, we're a manufacturing company. There's knives everywhere. We're cutting tires. Clearly there was something that built up to that, other than that one argument. So you have to, again, going back to people skills and the power of your voice, be able to talk about problems, differences, and things of that nature, okay? Since I'm running out of time, though, I'm going to jump real quick forward to the future, because I've talked to you about the past, I've talked to you about the present, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the future. So as far as going back to that quote by Gandhi about being the change, I want to talk to you about my efforts to be the change. This is where the launch of my business came from, SBR Workplace Consultation Services. Because of my research, because of my experiences that I put together this company in which I can help other organizations with putting together policies and procedures to prevent bullying, hosting workshops, assertiveness trainings, leadership trainings, teamwork building, all those things to try to make a better workplace for everybody. Additionally, remember I was telling you about that fire department? Although I left operational and went administrative, I had the great opportunity to become a part of a force within that organization to develop policies and procedures for harassment prevention, sexual harassment, hazing, discrimination, and bullying. And I am the lead instructor for that program. As a matter of fact, I'll be teaching that class tomorrow. Every individual who's a member of our department has to take that training. The chief and the president has taken that training, assistant chiefs have taken that training, and every new member who steps foot in the organization has to go through that training with me. Additionally, I had the distinct honor of being invited to the International Association of Fire Chiefs Conference this year, and I've also joined a task force with them in which they're launching an initiative right now that we're working on collectively, so that by mid-2019, across the country, anytime you join a fire department, you'll be required to go through these types of trainings. Because fire service is a big industry for this sort of thing, bullying and hazing and all that stuff. And so we're trying to put and take the right steps in the right direction to create change. So like I said, be the change you want to see in the world, in all the different industries in which you work in as well. And the power of your voice will make an impact. Thank you so much for your time and attention this afternoon.